Hello and welcome to The Virus. I'm Jeremy Fernandez. We begin with a significant development out of WA. The Premier there, Mark McGowan, has put a timeline on the hard border with the rest of Australia coming down.
Eventually, there comes a point where the border is ineffective when you get to high case numbers within the state. It is plain to see that 4 weeks of caution has paid dividends. It means it is now far safer to relax our hard border settings. So based on the latest health advice, I can announce that effective 12:01 a.m, Thursday the 3rd of March, Western Australia will resume our full border opening, safely, sensibly and responsibly. In 12 days' time, for interstate arrivals, it will mean quarantine-free travel can resume for triple-dose vaccinated people aged 12 and older if eligible. Travellers will need to declare their vaccination through the G2G pass system and will be required to take a rapid antigen test, provided to them at the airport within 12 hours and report any positive result to WA Health. International arrivals will need to have a registered G2G pass and meet the Commonwealth Government requirements to enter Australia. I know removing the hard border is a step that some in the community have been looking forward to. The notice period of nearly 2 weeks gives the community and businesses time to prepare and make plans.
The vast majority of eligible Australians have rolled up their sleeves for their 2 COVID jabs. It's meant we now have one of the highest double vaccination rates in the world. But the uptake for the booster has been sluggish. So why is that the case? Coming up, we'll hear what's being done to encourage more people to get their 3rd shot. And while we focus on boosters here, some countries are already getting underway with administering a 4th shot. Casey Briggs joins us now. Casey, Israel began offering that 4th dose earlier this year.
That's right, Jez. Here's Israel's primary course of vaccination coverage, if you like. 73% with a first dose, 66.4% with a second dose. 3rd doses, they're at 56%. And let's just reflect on that for a second before we get to 4th doses. You know, Israel was a global leader in getting people vaccinated earliest. When you look at its coverage these days, well, it's sort of middle of the road in population coverage when compared to other wealthy nations. In terms of 4th doses, that program's been going since earlier this year. We're looking at about 50% of people in there who are older than 70 have had a 4th shot, about 30% of people in their 60s, and the numbers in younger age groups are very small indeed. And it's not exactly like 4th doses are still going gangbusters in Israel. This is the number of doses administered each day in Israel going back to the start of the rollout. A mountain of 1st and 2nd doses a bit over a year ago, a hill of 3rd doses in mid last year, and then a mound of 4th doses that's really slowed down to a trickle of jabs every day. So I don't know why. It could be partly that there's a bit less urgency among Israelis to go and get extra shots now that the Omicron wave there, like here, is starting to recede. Now, there are some Australians who are also getting 4th shots. It's part of their course of vaccination if they're immunocompromised, but there's no, as yet, population-wide 4th dose program. And we're probably better off in Australia, for the time being at least, talking about 3rd doses still. Here's our coverage. 41.2% of all Australians are now 3rd dose protected. And that includes children who aren't eligible and in fact can't even get a 1st dose for the youngest of kids. But 41.2% is where we're at across the nation at the moment. And that number's pretty similar from state to state, ranging from as high as 51.8% in the ACT to as low as 36 and 34% in Queensland and the Northern Territory. But here's the thing, Jez, there are millions and millions of people across Australia who are eligible right now for their booster shot. And in fact, in some of these states, almost everyone who's had a 2nd dose is already eligible for a 3rd dose. And there's lots of people, yet to get those doses. And it's not exactly like in Israel, not exactly like the booster shot program is going gangbusters at the moment. In fact, the number of doses we're seeing delivered in Australia each day, that is also slowing down at about 140,000 doses a day is what we're seeing at the moment. And that is about half of what it was a month ago. So again, I don't know, is it a lack of urgency? Is people seem to think Omicron is going away in Australia? There is still a lot of Omicron about. And the other thing, Jez, is could there be a bit of misconception out there about how long you need to wait after getting Omicron before getting your third dose protection? I'm hearing anecdotally from many people that they're waiting quite some time when the official health advice is you can get that third shot, Jez, the moment that you're fully recovered from the virus.
Casey, thank you. Well, Dr. Katie Atwell is a vaccine policy expert at the University of Western Australia. She joins us now. Dr. Atwell, thanks so much for joining us. This is obviously not a uniquely Australian problem. Why is it that the uptake of boosters is a little bit sluggish?
I think there's a range of factors, not least that we are quite far into the pandemic now, and there have been so many twists and turns, so many changes and challenges along the way. But certainly the recent Omicron variant and the way that's looked very different and the way that's moved through our populations, including affecting some vaccinated people as well. So there's all of those things to consider. But I think a really important feature is that we were sold a 2-dose regime. So people thought that that would be it. They'd get their 2 doses and, down the track, they might need a booster, but perhaps not realising that it would be so quickly that they would need that third dose after their second dose. So certainly across the country where there are vaccine mandates at work, there are people who have only had those 2 doses because they've had to. And even for people who were more happy to comply with having 2 doses, there are still mixed feelings around having that third dose. Some recent research that I've conducted with a team here in Western Australia, which we haven't published yet, actually showed a 9 percentage point difference between people who were willing to be double dosed and people's acceptance or willingness to actually have that third dose as well. So people are thinking about that third dose differently. And don't forget as well, there have been communication challenges around that. Obviously, a lot of time and energy has gone into communicating with us about the importance of those 2 doses, as well as delivering those through a range of channels so people can access them. And that may not have been so easy, convenient, or important in the messaging around the third dose.
Tell me about the distinction you make between calling it a booster versus a third shot and where that puts us, potentially with a 4th shot.
Well, I just think the language of a booster sounds a bit optional. You can, it can be a marketing term. You can boost your juice by adding a wheatgrass shot, or you can boost your productivity by a smart hack. This third dose doesn't just sort of give us a little bonus boost. It's actually proving really central to preventing severe illness and to reducing transmission in everybody. So it's crucial. And I think we need to call it a third dose. We need to normalise it, even though it's not what anybody wanted. It would have been amazing if a 2-dose course was enough. But I think we need to use a language that communicates that to be fully vaccinated, that importance of being fully vaccinated, and right now, and it might change again, right now, being fully vaccinated, having our bodies as prepared and as armed as they can be against the virus is a third dose.
Dr. Katie Atwell, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So while the booster rollout continues here, should we be planning for a 4th shot? Dr. Vaso Apostolopoulos is a professor of immunology at Victoria University in Melbourne. Professor, thank you for joining us. As Casey mentioned, some countries like Israel are considering a 4th dose for the general population. There are other countries like the UK's government advisors that are ruling it out for now because they say the third shot seems to be enough. The US FDA says it's still collecting evidence. Why is there this difference in the interpretation of the necessity for a 4th dose for the general population?
Well, initially, the 4th dose was for those at need, the immune-compromised, underlying disorders over 80. I know recently they have actually opened that up for over 18. So a 4th dose, I guess, because, there's all these mutations are occurring and we get new variants, and it's to further boost your immunity. In addition, evidence is showing now that immunity after 3 to 4 months is actually starting to wane down. It decreases, and therefore, a 4th injection will be required to further boost your immune system. Why does the immune response wane down? We're still a little bit puzzled, because it's not only from the vaccines, also people that have got the natural infection, so they've got COVID, they could still be reinfected. And even in those cases where, natural infection and there's the natural immunity generated, we're still not getting the 100%. The immune responses are waning down. So ideally, the booster injection should be a variant vaccine against the variant, rather than the vaccine against the original virus, because all these vaccines are against the original Wuhan virus 2 years ago. Since then, the virus has actually mutated about 30,000 times, and there's, not in the 30,000 times it's been mutated, but they're not all making a difference into the body. There are 5 variants of concern: the alpha, beta, gamma, delta, omicron. And but the virus is mutated so many times. So ideally, the booster should be we should use the variant. But at this point of time, what we have available are these vaccines until a variant vaccine comes out. We have these vaccines in order to boost that immunity that's waning down. Let's boost it and try and increase the protection or minimise the side effects and severe disease in these participants.
So where does all this leave Australia in considering a 4th dose for the general population and for those who are most vulnerable?
Well, definitely a 4th dose is recommended for especially those in aged care or in closed environments, have underlying disorders, immune compromised, etc., elderly. Definitely they would benefit. Studies show that they definitely would benefit from even a 3rd and a 4th dose. In regards to the general population, a 4th injection, it would be good. But there's no reason why not to take a 4th dose. You're further boosting your immune system, so there's no harm in further boosting your immune system. But then again, what do we do? Do we give it to the general population, or make these vaccines available for other poorer countries that really need? Because at the end of the day, if these other poorer countries that there are no vaccines and they're not getting vaccinated, if they don't receive the vaccines and they're not getting uptake and people getting vaccinated, then we will see further mutations. And, we've got the Omicron, we had the Delta, and these are pandemics within a pandemic. The new pandemics, at the end of the day, the new pandemic. So the Omicron is a new pandemic. Delta was another pandemic inside the pandemic. So if you think about it, it's a new virus. It's been mutated. It's causing new escape mechanisms. It changes the way it behaves in the body and the way, it escapes from our immune system, etc. So, really we should think about, the world should think about vaccinating, getting the vaccine to these other countries so we could prevent further pandemics within our pandemic or further mutations and variants. Because then, if there's another outbreak with another variant, we start all over again.
The Novavax vaccine is about to be rolled out in Australia. What impact would that have on the uptake of vaccines and boosters?
I believe in the next few weeks, when this starts getting rolled out in Australia, we will get an uptake of quite a lot of people being vaccinated. So these are for people that haven't been immunised, haven't been vaccinated, to get the vaccine. They'll get 2 doses of it, 21 days apart, 1 dose, and then 21 days later, the 2nd dose. I believe, I think we're at 93% at the moment. We will probably get up towards 100%, not 100% actually, but, towards that number. I think that will be great. So we'll get more people being vaccinated. In regards to boosters, at the moment, Novavax has not been approved as a booster for, those that have taken the mRNA or the viral vector vaccines. Hasn't been approved for as the Novavax as a booster. However, studies are being done at the moment, and once those results come through and they show effectiveness, then I don't see why in a few months' time they probably will be available as booster shots. But at this point of time in Australia, they will only be used for those that haven't been vaccinated.
Professor Apostolopoulos, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And that is the show for this week. Thanks for your company. From all of us, bye for now.